Although the war started in 1812, conflict had thrived long before then. In 1787, the United States passed the Northwest Ordinance, which allowed for a northwest expansion, which is where the U.S. began to move beyond the Appalachian Mountains. This ended up leading to the Americans taking land from the native tribes. These tribes then teamed up with the British and began to attack the U.S., which created tensions and led to war. A long-term cause was imprisonment, which was where the Britain deliberately seized ships from the U.S. and captured those on board, disrupting trade with France due to the frequent imprisonment of their ships. The U.S. tried to ease tension with Britain via the Non-Intercourse Act of 1889 and Jay's Treaty, but they ultimately did not prevent the War of 1812. Many battles in the War of 1812. In 1812, Americans' first major campaign was the invasion of Canada that led to the Battle of York. This Battle of York was an extremely easy win for the Americans as they urged for expansion into Canada during the first years of the War of 1812. On April 27, 1813, in York, Ontario, which was now known as Toronto, Americans stormed Fort York, defeating the Britons. The Battle of Detroit, also known as the surrender of Fort Detroit, was a horrendous loss for the Americans during the war. The battle cost the Americans the entire army and brought some of their plans to a halt. During the War of 1812, the American General William Howe surrendered Fort Detroit and his army to the British without putting up a fight. The general had lost all hope of defending their settlement after seeing what he may be put up against. The next year, the Battle of Lake Erie was fought on September 10, 1813, also known as the Battle of Put-in Bay. This major naval conflict was fought off the coast of Ohio. In spite of having inferior ships, the 9 vessels of the U.S. Navy defeated the British ship and gained control of the Great Lake regions. On March 27, 1814, the Battle of Horseshoe Bend was a battle of the Mississippi Territory that would mark the end of the Creek War, an ongoing territorial conflict between Americans and Indians that would become part of the larger War of 1812. The Battle of Horseshoe Bend was the battle that made Andrew Jackson a national hero. He was made a major general in the U.S. Army and was able to defeat the British forces at the Battle of New Orleans. The Battle of Bladensburg was a battle of the Chesapeake campaign during the 24th of August, 1814, in Maryland. This war was a battle by the British and left Washington vulnerable and easily attacked. Due to the nasty war, it devastated American morale and destroyed the spirit and the great symbols of the Americas. Although the war was a tragedy to the Americans, the British saw it as the end of the necessary war.
As a way to try and oppose the War of 1812, the New England Federalist Party created a convention in Hartford, Connecticut called the Hartford Convention. They met to address their grievances concerning the ongoing War of 1812 and the political problems arising from the federal government's increasing power. The Hartford Convention was in response to the excessive power exercised by the Democratic Republicans. Weeks after the end of the convention, news of General Andrew Jackson's victory in the Battle of New Orleans reached the Northeast, discrediting and disgracing the Federalists, causing their elimination as a major national political force. In order to try and end the War of 1812, the Treaty of Ghent was created. Both the British and the U.S. signed the treaty on December 24, 1814. The conditions of the treaty were that all the conquered territory was to be returned and commissioned war plan to settle the boundary of the United States and Canada. A large British army under Sir George Prevost was thus forced to abandon its invasion of the U.S. Northwest and retreat to Canada. As the Battle of New Orleans had happened and the Americans won, it impacted the United States by having a patriotism, which this gave Americans a positive culture of victory of the War of 1812, even though it was a draw. But the overall War of 1812 had Democratic Republicans supporting it and the United States trade with sailors, because the United States was trading with France while Britain and France were at war. Overall, the War of 1812 had proved to be the United States that they can provide for themselves and do not need Britain goods as support to the United States.